Welcome back to our continuing study of the weekly Haftara. This week we have really the great zchus of reading the Haftara of Nachamu Ami. I'm clearly recording this before Tisha B'Av, so in a way I'm cheating, but in a way not, because it's Erev Tisha B'Av, and you're sort of resigned to the fact that it's going to be Tisha B'Av, but you're immediately looking for improvement, and you're looking for a way that next year we'll celebrate Tisha B'Av as a yontif and not just as a fast day. And Nachamu Ami gets us into that feeling. So, God willing, that will be the case. Also, it'll be pretty abbreviated today, because I just want to make a few short points about the beginning of Haftara, and then we'll move on. So, first of all, let's start with the Tosfos that we've talked about before. These Tosfos points out that we don't really do what the Gemara says. It is a Tosfos in Megillah, Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. Ve'ein anu osim kein ela maftir b'Yirmiyahu shimud dvar Hashem v'shavash l'fnei Tisha B'Av chazon Yishayahu v'tam l'fi shanu noagim al pi hapsikta lomar gimel t'parnusa kodem Tisha B'Av. Okay, and then Tosfos lists what they are, and then Tosfos says for our purposes, and then Ubasar Tisha B'Av Shevda Nechemta, and after Tisha B'Av the 7 Haftaras of consolation, and then V'tarti D'Tiyuvta, and 2 before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur of Tshuva. What are the 7? Ve'Elohim Nachamu, V'atom Tzion Azavani Hashem, and then he lists all the Haftaras that we read. And then a really interesting line at the end of Tosfos. It's not the end of Tosfos, but the last one we're going to read. And Tosfos says, the derech hanechamot liyot holchot umeshubachot yoter. That the way of the nechamot is to get better and better. Meaning, says Tosfos, we're going to have 7 haftarot of nechama, of consolation, and there's a lot to look forward to, because they're going to get increasingly more consolation worthy, or increasingly the level of consolation is going to go up, and that's something we should keep in mind, as we do these haftaros. And it turns out that as exciting as it is, Nachamu Ami, it's important to point out, colloquially we refer to this Shabbos as Shabbos Nachamu. It's not that common for us to refer to a Haftara, to refer to a Shabbos by its Haftara. We do it on Shabbos HaGadol, right, which is Yom Zeh Gadol, right? That's a quote from the Haftara. We do it for Shabbos Shuvah Yisrael Al Hashem Elokecha, right? It's hard to think of another Shabbos, but Shabbos Nachamu is called that, and there's a sense the whole Shabbos is consolation. So let's start the Haftara. Says the Navi, says Yeshayahu in Perek Mem, Nachamu Ami Omar Elokechem. We'll come back to the double lashon, because I think that's important. Daberu alev Yerushalayim v'kiru eleha. Speak to the heart of Jerusalem and call out to it. Ki malat tziva'ah, ki nirtza avona, ki lakcha miyad Hashem kiflaim b'chol chatoseha. The truth is, it's not that positive, right? What's the Navi saying? Call out to Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim has served its time, right? We've been punished enough, right? We've paid the proper price, and now it's time to move on. Now, this is tied, I think, to a fundamental machlokas. Really, it's in the Gemara, but it's really a philosophical machlokas. Says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Sadi Zayin Amud Beis, Amar Rav, Kalu Kolat Hitzin, right? All the ends are closed off. We tried everything. If we want the Geula to come, we have to do tshuva and masim tovim. Otherwise, it's not going to come. Says Shmuel, no. Shmuel Amar, Dayo la'avel sheyamod be'evlo. We don't need to do anything great. We just need to do that which was nigzar aleinu. We just have to put in the time. Right now, there are many psukim in Navi that support either of these positions. But what's really going on? What's really going on is a fundamental machlokas about how the world is supposed to work, right? According to Rav, we need to earn the geula. we need to do something positive, something importantly good for God to reward us with the Geula. But according to Shmuel, no. When the world works the way it's supposed to work, we're supposed to live in Eretz Yisrael, and everything is supposed to be great. That gets messed up from time to time because we sin. And then we have to pay the price. It's a strange thing. It's sort of like, maybe the most apt parallel is if God forbid I commit a crime. So I'm sentenced to 5 years in prison. So I get out in 5 years, whether I did tshuva or not, whether I promise I'm never going to do it again or not. If I say I'm going to do it again, I still get out in 5 years. I have to serve my full sentence. I don't have my sentence reduced because I'm a good inmate or something like that. But in 5 years, I get out. And it sounds to me, at least, that that's what Yeshayahu was saying, right? Yeshayahu was saying, Ki malatzva, ki nirtzavona. They've paid the price. They served the time. That's it. It's time to let them go. That's the first level of consolation, right? We did wrong, it's true, and therefore we were punished, but we paid the price. And if we paid the price, it's time for us to move on. That it seems to me, like at least at the beginning of our Haftara, that Yeshayahu paskins, so to speak, like Shmuel, right? Dayo la'avel she'amod be'evlo. No, I did my time. I was in avel for enough time, and now God shouldn't bring us back to where we would normally be. Okay, we don't really need to discuss both sides of this machlokus, but I think it's a fascinating machlokus about how the world is supposed to work and our role in it. And for this week's Haftarah, it's good enough to say, yes, they've suffered enough. With no great gifts, the world's not going to change in our Haftarah, but a small consolation will be the fact that we've paid the price, and therefore it's time to move on. Okay, that's one point I wanted to make about Haftara. Two more points. The second point is really, really short. It has to do with an interesting pasuk. The third pasuk in Haftara says, Kol korei bamidbar panu darech Hashem yashru ba'arava misila leilokenu. Now, this reminds us, I think it's famous because even I know it. There's a famous phrase in Israel, Kol korei bamidbar. And it's kind of a depressing phrase because Kol korei bamidbar means I have something really, really important to say, but it's being lost in the midbar. No one's hearing me. It's like whistling in the wind. There's no point to it. But it's funny because that's not the pisuk ta'amim of our pasuk. The pasuk is Kol korei bamidbar panu derech Hashem, right? It's not Kol korei bamidbar. It's Kol korei, a voice calls out, bamidbar panu derech Hashem. We're going into the midbar, make a space, make a path for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Misila Leilokenu, right? So you might think from the phrase in Israel, or the phrase in Hebrew, that Kol Korei Bamidbar is something negative. It's not. It's just Kol Korei Kama Bamidbar Panu Derech Hashem. Okay, that's the second point. And the third point, and really the most important point that I want to make about the Haftara, is the double lashon, right? We all know the double lashon, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, and, it reminds us of happy things. It makes us feel good about ourselves, and we think it's really unique. Ooh, double lashon, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Where else do you find this? But the truth is, the Psikta tells us how common it is, and not just generally in Tanakh, how common it is in the Shev de Nechemta, in the 7 Haftarahs that we're starting to read this week. It's really common. Example, says Psikta, sos asis is a double lashon. The same word, sos asis. Anochi, anochi hu menachemchem. Uri, uri. Right? Hit ori, hit ori. The double lashon comes all the time. And it's not just in Psukim, just off the top of my head, right? The famous Gemara at the end of Makos. It's a Tisha B'Av related Gemara, right? Shuv pa'machas hayu olim Yerushalayim. Rabbi Akiva is walking with his friends, and they see a shual yotzim beit kodesh charashim, and Rabbi Akiva laughs, and his friends cry, and they say, Rabbi Akiva, he says, why are you crying? And they tell him, and he says, why are you laughing? And he says, because the two nevuos are connected, right? And now that the bad nevuah of Uriah came true, I'm sure that the good nevuah of Zechariah will come true of Od Yeshu Zikenu Zikenot Birchavot Yushalayim. Right? And then the Gemara says, B'lashon hazeh amru, Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu. Right? A double lashon, Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu, the same thing twice. And at least one other place that I can think of, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, it's another famous Gemara, where Rabbi Akiva goes to console his Rabbi Yoshua, because in the fight with Rabbi Gamliel about when Yom Kippur is, Rabbi Gamliel told Rabbi Yoshua to come on the day that Rabbi Yoshua thinks is Yom Kippur, and to come with his wallet, and to basically be Mechal Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Yoshua was disappointed, and Rabbi Akiva comforted him. And the Gemara ends with Akiva nichamtani, nichamtani. Once again, a double lashon. And I think that sometimes repeating yourself is a tactic. I mean, what do I mean by a tactic? It's a way of saying, I know this is really, really important. The truth is, I have nothing substantive to add. So I'm going to make the same point again, right? I want to emphasize how important this is. Often people, you say, I love you more than once, because you want the person to understand that you're trying to comfort them. You're trying to make them feel better. You're trying to get a result from the conversation. It's a bad example, but in the movie Good Will Hunting, if anybody ever saw it, right? In the classic scene where Robin Williams is comforting, I don't know, the guy, I forget it, Matt Damon. Yeah. He's comforting Matt Damon, and he says over and over again, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, and he breaks down crying. But the point is, sometimes when you want another person to feel good, you just repeat yourself, right? If somebody said right now, if somebody walked in the door and said, Mashiach is here, I wouldn't believe him. But if he said it again, right? If he said it in a way that made me think, when you go, you go menachem aval. So you want the person to feel better. Sometimes you don't have something new to say. You don't have some new story. So you just say the same thing over again. He was a really good person. He was a really good person, right? But that's enough. And I think when you're trying to comfort somebody, repeating something is a tactic that we all do. I don't say tactic in the negative way, I mean in a positive way. I want the result to be that this person feels better, so therefore I'm going to repeat myself, and sometimes repeating yourself makes it clear to the person that you're trying really, really hard. Okay, so not a lot today. We saw 3 points. We saw the fact that, like Tosfos says, this is just the beginning of the process of Nechama. The Sheva de Nechemta go in ascending order. So this is the least level of Nechama. And we saw that it's really true, that the Haftara seems to be based on the fact that God should comfort us because we paid our price. Not necessarily because it's the right thing to do, because we're the chosen people, because we paid our price. Okay, so that's one thing. We saw the line Kol Karei Bamidbar doesn't really mean that. It's Kol Karei Kama Bamidbar Panu Derech Hashem. And in a way, when we look at Nachamu Ami, the repeating of the words, it's like I want to be comforting, even though I don't know how to be comforting, and so I'm trying my best by repeating. There's plenty more to learn, and there's plenty more to see about Haftara, but I think hopefully these 3 ideas should give us some level of comfort as we start the Shevta Nechemta, as we start the process of going through the 7 Haftaras of the consolation, which will end with the 2 Haftaras of Tshuva, which will end with Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which are coming Aleinu L'Tova. Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and all the best.